Hi friends, my name is Katie. Welcome back to my channel, Life Between Words. Let's answer some questions today. I have about 60 questions that you guys asked me. I'm going to try and answer them all. I'm just going to try and answer them really fast. So let's get started. The first question is, what moment, scene, or quote from Anne of Green Gables or Ellen Montgomery's books is your favorite? When I was a kid, my friends and I were all Anne of Green Gables fans, and we would read a scene from the third book, Anne of the Island, out loud to each other over and over and over again. It was the proposal scene between Gilbert and Anne. To my young, impressionable imagination, it was like the perfect proposal. So I always have had a soft spot for that scene. The second question is, what are some of Fox's favorite books to read? Probably his current absolute favorite is a book called Dragons Love Tacos by Adam Rubin, and if you guys haven't read this book, it's really fun. It's just about how much dragons love tacos but hate spicy salsa. He also loves The Gruffalo. Julia Donaldson is my favorite children's book author for rhymes. Her rhymes work so well. I love all of her books. I want to own them all, and not only are these some of Fox's favorites, they're some of my favorites. And then third, he loves this book called Open This Little Book. My cousins got this for Fox. One of their elementary school teachers' kids wrote this book. It's by Jesse Klausmeyer, and it's really fun because you just open every page, you're opening a different book, and Fox loves to do this. Question number 3 is, what books are you most looking forward to introducing your kids to as they grow up? For me, it's all about classic children's literature. Once again, I'm only going to mention a few things because there's a ton that I plan to read to my kids. Of course, I really want to read Harry Potter to my kids, and I plan to read these illustrated editions. Pretty soon, I will probably be able to read Winnie the Pooh out loud to Fox. I love this classic looking edition with the peekaboo cover. Charlotte's Web and the Chronicles of Narnia, which are up here. So all of my Chronicles of Narnia, I will read all of those books out loud to my kids as well. The next question is, do you use your local library? Yes, I do. This next question, I got a ton of questions about. How do you find balance, time for reading between your children and life and work? The really short answer to that is that I will often read instead of doing things that need to get done around the house. So I will have gigantic piles of laundry that need to get done, or I will have a pile of dishes in the sink. I prioritize reading over most of those other things. It doesn't mean that I'm a slob, but yeah, reading is like one of my biggest priorities outside of taking care of my family, which does include like doing laundry and making sure that there are clean clothes and stuff. The biggest thing for me is that reading is the way I de-stress. It's how I relax. I need to read every day or I will just go crazy. In general, I will only read when my kids are asleep or they're occupied doing something else. Who is your favorite Harry Potter character? Neville, Ron, Hermione, and Dumbledore. What do you do as a career? I work part-time for a Christian ministry doing writing and editing and proofreading and that kind of thing. Other than reading, what are your hobbies? I am a consummate craft dabbler. I have been known to sew. I have been known to crochet. There was one time when I dabbled a little bit in stained glass. I have tried my hand at hand lettering. And my next venture, I think, is going to be paper flowers. So I have lots of things that I like to do to keep myself busy creatively. What is your favorite movie? Asking about favorite things is so hard. I'm just going to mention 3 that I love from different genres. Little Miss Sunshine, Braveheart, and When Harry Met Sally. I got 2 very similar questions. One was, if you could only read 2 books for the rest of your life, what would they be? And the second question was, what are your 5 desert island reads? So I am going to choose, all right, this is really hard. Okay, this is totally a cheat, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call an entire series one book because I don't wanna leave any of the books from a series behind. So I'm gonna say Harry Potter, Anne of Green Gables, Peace Like a River, a Jane Austen book, To Be Decided, and The Pillars of the Earth. What place, city, or country would you like to visit the most? I've always wanted to go to France. Ever since I was a little girl, I've wanted to go to France and I've never been. So that's where I'm gonna say. What's your #1 tip for new and starting booktubers? Be yourself, and find people who are starting around the same time as you, comment on their videos, and make friends with them. I'd say that's the easiest way to dive in and the easiest way to make friends. What book made you into a reader? This is a hard question because I could go really far back with this one. There's not a time in my life when I don't remember reading, but I'm gonna say my favorite book that was read out loud to me when I was a little girl, and that is this edition of Cinderella by Susan Jeffers. I used to pretend that I could read this book out loud. But it's also really beautiful, isn't it? I loved this Cinderella book. What did you study in school? Would you change your major? What are other areas you would have liked to study? For undergrad, I studied at St. Olaf College in Minnesota. I was an English major, and then I went on to get a graduate degree from University of Southern California in LA a few years later, and I got a Master's of Communication Management. And I have to say that I'm not entirely happy that I chose to get an English degree. As much as I love English, I found that it was kind of hard for me to find a job after graduating, and I wish that perhaps I would have chosen something that would have been a little bit easier to make a career out of. I kind of floundered, and I still kind of feel like I haven't really figured out what I want to do with my life. And I am in my 30s now. How different are your reading tastes now from before you started Booktube? This is an interesting question, and I'm going to answer it a little bit differently than it was asked. Wilder just woke up, so he's going to join us. My reading tastes haven't necessarily changed. However, I'm always hearing about books that I want to read. So I would say that what's changed is my TBR pile has gotten a lot longer. Did you see the PBS production of Anne of Green Gables, and did you like it? I purposefully did not watch the PBS production of Anne of Green Gables. I think it was Martin Sheen that was in it. Was it Martin Sheen? One of the Sheens, right? I just knew that I wasn't going to like it. That's all I'm going to say about that. What books have made you cry the most? A Monster Calls was probably the most recent book to make me cry the most. What is your connection to the UK, and have you ever visited? I feel a very strong connection / attachment to the UK, particularly England. My great-grandparents were English. My great-grandmother was from the north of England, and my great-grandfather was from Southampton. They came over here in the 1920s-ish. Even to this day, almost 100 years later now, my family still has a lot of English traditions, and we connect strongly with our English heritage. Having said that, I've only ever been to England once. My parents took me to England after college, and we did sort of a literary tour. We went to Jane Austen's house and Charles Dickens' house, and we went to Oxford, and we sort of spied on C.S. Lewis's house and Tolkien's house. We weren't able to go inside and tour the houses because I think they're actually residential houses. Will you give us a little tour of the shelves behind you? Yes, I will, but I think I'm going to save it for another video because this one is going to be too long otherwise. This next question was probably my most asked question of all, and that is, what was the inspiration for your sons' names? For Fox, the inspiration was Fox Mulder from The X-Files, because The X-Files is my husband's very favorite TV show, and Fox Mulder is his very favorite character. And then for Wilder, Laura Ingalls Wilder was the inspiration. I also got asked this next question a few times. Are you a Christian? What religion did you grow up in? Do you still follow it? Yes, I am a Christian. I grew up a Christian. My faith is very important to me. What's your favorite place you've ever visited and why? I'm going to say that England was my favorite trip, although I've taken some really cool trips. I also went to Kauai, Hawaii with my husband for our honeymoon. That is certainly a memorable trip. Also in college, I went to Greece and Turkey for a month, and we followed Paul's missionary journey. That was an incredible trip. Yeah, I've been very lucky to go to some really cool places, but there's a lot more travel I'd like to do. Whether I'm actually able to do it anytime soon, probably not, but I can dream. Alright, I also got asked this question a lot, and that is, how did you and your husband meet? My husband and I were both working at Barnes & Noble. I was working in the children's department, and I had my nose in a book, smelling it, and he saw me from across the store and was like, that girl's quirky. I like her, and the rest is history. Describe your ideal reading setting. Christmas time with a cup of hot cocoa, sitting on the couch with twinkly lights and the Christmas tree surrounding me. Do your friends and family know that you have a Booktube channel, or do you keep it a secret? Up until a couple weeks ago when I was having this exact same conversation with a couple of other Booktubers, I had no idea that people kept this part of their lives a secret. My whole family knows that I have a Booktube channel. They all watch it, including my grandfather. Hi, Grandpa! And my friends all know that I do it as well. Yeah, I've never thought to keep that part of my life a secret. I am kind of an open book in general, and so I'm an open book on Booktube, and I'm an open book in my real life. Sorry for the pun. How has being a mom influenced or changed your reading habits? I'm not sure that my reading has changed as much as it's become even more vital for me to read. When you're a parent, you give your whole heart and soul to parenting. You have to become incredibly selfless. Your life is not really your own to do. You having some toots over there, Wilder? Goodness gracious. Your life is not really your own to do with what you want anymore, and so reading has become more precious to me. I have to read in order to be a good parent because it's how I maintain my own self, if that makes sense. Reading is so important to me, and it's so important to my emotional life and my own well-being that I'm a better parent if I have a chance every day to read. What book have you read more than 5 times? I think the only book that I've read more than 5 times is Anne of Green Gables. Oh, no, that's not true. I think also I've read Matilda more than 5 times by Roald Dahl, although that one I haven't read in years. I read it a ton when I was a kid. Like, I would read it and then I would turn back to the beginning and read it over again, and I'd read it in a day. So I read that book so many times, I can't even count how many times I read Matilda. Do you write, or do you want to be a writer? Yes and yes. I will go through periods of time where I'm writing every day, and I will go through periods of time where I don't write for months. But at some point in my life, probably when my boys are a little bit older, I really, really would like to get back into writing regularly because I do have stories inside of me that I want to tell. This goes into another question that was asked, which is, when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? And for me, that was always a writer. Ever since I could write words, actually even before I could write words, one of my favorite things to occupy my time when I was really little was to sit and write stories or draw pictures that told stories. Like, that was my favorite thing to do. My mom would set me up with some crayons and some folded paper, and I would write stories. I had an amazing first grade teacher, and we had like a writer's workshop, and we spent time every day writing books. And then in 3rd grade, I had a teacher who told my mom that I had a voice, and I am sorry to say that it's a gift that I have squandered a little bit because I don't write all the time, and I really should be writing. Have you always been a reader? Yes, I have. Always, always, always. If you could meet 5 authors, past or present, who would they be? Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, Ella Montgomery, Laura Ingalls Wilder. Who would the 5th be? Oh, J.K. Rowling. At various times in my life, those 5 authors have meant the world to me. What does your average day look like, and would you do a follow me around vlog video? Which is a great idea, and so I'm not going to answer this question. I, at some point, will do a vlog of my day, probably on a day where I'm doing more than just sitting around playing with my kids. Although that is kind of what you asked, because on an average day I'm mostly just taking care of my kids, but I will make the vlog more interesting than that. What are your favorite activities to do as a family? We love to go for walks. We love to go to the zoo. We love to have breakfast together. My husband works 3rd shift, so we aren't always able to eat dinner as a family, but we can almost always eat breakfast as a family. These next series of questions were from my friend Brad. So Brad asks me, when are you going to move to the South? I'm sorry, Brad, I'm probably not going to move to the South. He also asks, why haven't we ever seen your husband on your YouTube channel? And the answer to that is mostly because he's really private, a lot more private than I am, and doesn't want to put his face on the internet, which makes me really, really sad because I'd love to have him come on my channel sometime, and I'm still working on him. I'm going to try to convince him sometime to join me. We'll see if he does or not. Brad also asks, what does your husband like to read? He reads a lot of classic science fiction. He has also recently really gotten into Stephen King, and he loves Dan Simmons. What else does he like? His favorite book of all time is a book from none of those genres. It's called Girls by Frederick Bush, and it's kind of a literary mystery. It shocks me every time I think about that being his favorite book because it's so far from what he normally reads. It's really quiet, it's really, really literary, and yeah. But it's also really good. How much thought do you put into your bookshelf arrangement? I put a lot of thought into my arrangement right here, although I've got some other bookshelves around the house, and I don't put as much thought into those. Are your friends in real life bookish? Most of my closest friends are bookish, although not all of my friends are bookish. I do have some friends that don't read. Do you come from a family of readers? I do. I have two brothers. They're both younger than me. My older younger brother, the middle child, he mostly reads nonfiction history. He's been really into the Civil War these days. But my youngest brother, who I'd love to have on my channel next time he visits, he lives out in Seattle. He loves to read. He and I are definitely bookish kindred spirits, and both my parents read. So yeah, my whole family reads. Someone asked, do you ever get mad? This person said, you seem so sweet and soft-spoken. The short answer is yes, I do. The longer answer is it takes a lot to get me mad. I don't get mad very easily. I don't stay angry very long, and I feel most comfortable getting angry with the people that I love. So if I'm not very close with you, I probably am never going to express any anger. It's one of the reasons that I loved the movie Inside Out. I really resonate with the main character, Riley, who feels a lot of pressure to feel happy all the time. Do you have a plan to encourage your sons to become readers? Or did Fox just naturally come to love reading? I feel very, very strongly about encouraging my boys to become readers, and I have a lot of ideas about that, most of which come from this book right here. It's called the Read Aloud Handbook, and I highly recommend it for everyone. I feel like everyone in the world should read this book. It is amazing. One of the things that it talks about is how academic success is almost entirely reliant upon a child's ability and dedication to reading. Reading out loud to our kids is so, so, so important. Well beyond the point at which they can read to themselves, you should still be reading out loud to your kids. We're talking like through high school. It's really important to me that my boys see me reading. If kids see their parents reading, then they're more likely to read. Becoming a reader is not inevitable, but it can certainly be encouraged. You can have a huge effect on your kids in terms of reading, and I feel really, really passionately about it. Neither of my kids, obviously this one is still pretty brand new, so neither one of my kids are technically readers yet, although I already read out loud to Wilder because you should start right away. What jobs have you had? I have worked in a deli. I've worked at a diner where scooping ice cream, which was probably the worst job ever for me because I'm pretty little, I'm not very strong, and the waitstaff hated me. They were always pushing me to work faster, and I was working as fast as I could. I just couldn't scoop ice cream very fast. I've worked at a camp. I've worked at a bookstore. I think those are the places that I've worked. What advice would you give to 17-year-old you? So when I was 17, I was probably in the process of applying for college. I think I would probably tell myself to listen to my mom. I pretty much knew that I wanted to go to St. Olaf, but there was a particular program at St. Olaf that I had the opportunity to apply for called Great Conversation, and my mom really wanted me to do it, and I didn't want to, mostly because my mom was telling me to do it. I really, really wish, looking back on it, that I had done it. So I would tell my 17-year-old self to listen to my mother, to get over my pride, and to apply for Great Con. What kind of book do you reach for during a reading slump? I will almost always reach for a beloved book. A book like Harry Potter or Anne of Green Gables, something that I know that I'm going to love. If YouTube is still around, when your boys get older, what's your attitude about them starting a YouTube channel? I say if they want to do it, then they should just go for it and do it. Have you gone to BookCon? No, I haven't, and I'm not going to go this summer either. Unfortunately, it's just too expensive for me at this time in my life. This is one of my favorite questions. What are you and your husband like together? My husband and I are really, really different. He is extroverted, I am introverted. I call him salty and sweet because he has kind of a hard shell, but he's such a softie on the inside. He has a much more coarse sense of humor than I do, but he always knows how to make me laugh. He also really, really likes to tease me. So yeah, we laugh a lot together. Like I said earlier though, he's a really private person, and so one of the things that I love about our relationship is that he feels really comfortable opening up to me about everything, and there aren't very many people in his life that he feels comfortable doing that with. We're also both really affectionate people, both with touch and with language, so we're most of the time very sweet with each other. What books were you obsessed with as a kid? And I feel like I kind of already mentioned this, but I was totally obsessed with Matilda by Roald Dahl, and pretty much actually any Roald Dahl book. I read those books until the covers were coming off. Like, they were so beloved to me. I was also obsessed with Anne of Green Gables. Me and my friends also created a book club, and we called ourselves the Newberry Girls, and we read Newberry books or Newberry Honor books, and I was pretty obsessed with the Newberry Award winners as well. And those were all of the questions. Thank you guys so much for asking these questions. I had a lot of fun answering them. I don't think I did a very good job. I probably should have split this into 2 videos. I will talk to you guys later. Wilder's eating my arm. Bye. Wilder, can you say bye? Bye. Can you smile? Can you smile? Bye. It's kind of funny. You guys can only see like the top of Wilder's head. I'm sorry, that looks a little weird, but here he is. He's so cute.